Well, good afternoon, everyone. Oh, we can do much better than that. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Madison Avenue Christian Church. I am Bruce Kintner, and for the better part of the last 2+ years, I've had the privilege and the occasional challenge of serving as the chair of the Pipe Organ Restoration Committee here at the church. I feel a little bit like Louis Langray of the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra, getting ready to tell you about all the great music that you're getting ready to hear. So I know that I am the one person standing in between more great music, so I will be very short. Unfortunately, I don't have that cosmopolitan French accent, so you just have to listen to my Midwestern accent for a little bit. So you've already heard a taste of the restored 1926 Moeller pipe organ here at the church, courtesy of Michael Unger from UC's College-Conservatory Music. Thank you so much, Michael Unger. He does get to sit there just a bit more because he has a piece from Bach, of course, but he also is going to do a selection that includes church member and fellow CCM professor Quinn Ankrum. So we look forward to that here in just a moment. We're also incredibly fortunate to have Andrew Hackett and Brent Ludwick also joining us as organists today. So Madison Avenue Christian Church is now 108 years young. It was the result of two smaller churches here in Covington that voted to merge and create this wonderful structure, this church. So construction began in 1912, church opened in 1913. The original pipe organ was from one of those two churches. It was a completely manual pump tracker style organ. Trackers are narrow and tall, console right hard up against the pipes. That's the way trackers work. So that is what drove the design of this choir loft and that organ chamber. Unfortunately, the original thinking of only having to accommodate a tracker organ, again, narrow, tall, that really severely limited the church's options in the 1920s when they were going to go modern and have an electric actual blower feeding the air and move the console out and have shock electric wires connecting the console to the pipes. So we ended up here at Madison Avenue Christian Church with what David Schroth, who's right there, he'll be up here in a moment to chat, what David Schroth affectionately calls an impacted molar. That would be M-O-L-A-R, as in your tooth, because it is so tight inside that organ chamber. But bless his heart, and he and his teammates, they managed to figure it out. So most of you know, who know anything about pipe organs, they use real leather. Very important as far as a pipe organ. So Mac's 1926 pipe organ leather lasted far longer than anyone would have ever expected. But by about 10 years ago, and then 8 years ago, and 5 years ago, and finally by 2019, so much of the leather had failed that good chunks of the organ were basically unplayable. So how do you begin such a project? Well, Mac is very fortunate to have received a $50,000 challenge grant from the Elsa Sewell Foundation here in Northern Kentucky. Elsa Sewell sang for decades, literally right in front of those now restored facade pipes in that choir loft. And so that was the connection with our effort to re-kick the organ. I am confident that Elsa Sewell, if she were alive, she'd be so pleased with what has been able to be done. You'll notice in our program that there is one piano piece that is also being shared today, and that is from longtime friend and wonderful musician, my friend Josh Huff, who's sitting over here. He is playing a 7'6" Kawai, lovingly updated by Cincinnati's own Nevin Essex, that Elsa Sewell helped the church purchase some 25 years ago. So that's completing the connection with Elsa Sewell. So I invited Josh, would he be willing to play? And he said, absolutely. So we do appreciate that. Many of you will recognize the selections that are being shared today, but there is one exception. Mac is incredibly fortunate to have basically what we call a resident composer. So our great friend Emmy award-winning composer John Henry Kreitler, who is here in the center, a friend pointing at him right now, okay. John and his family were here at Madison Avenue Christian Church for a number of decades, and then moved out to the Los Angeles area of California for more than 20 years. And fortunately for us, John and his wife Patsy moved back here several years ago to Northern Kentucky and to Mac. John has written a piece celebrating Jeehan Park, who was Mac's former organist, who was tragically hit by a car and killed while walking along Beachmont Avenue just this past summer. Mac owes the connection with David Schroth to Jeehan's persistent research in trying to find someone who is willing to tackle this impacted molar. Multiple firms passed, but David Schroth said, this is something I know we can do. So again, I thank you for coming out today, and now back to Michael Unger and selections.
So Bruce wanted me to give a little bit of background information on the organ and about the project. Firstly, I want to thank everybody at Madison Avenue for giving my firm the opportunity to work on this delightful instrument. I'd like to thank my crew who have borne the brunt of squeezing themselves in there to do all the work. There's been quite a bit of that. As Bruce mentioned, it is a very compact instrument. The organ was installed in 1926. This was at the height of, the organ, in the United States, the organ companies were racing to industrialize organ building. They were introducing new advances in technology or trying to do so with some successes, some failures. One of the things that made this project challenging is that the wind chests in this organ are a transitional model. So even 5 years after this, the way that the magnets are mounted in the chest, the way that certain things are, made them a little easier to service. Or in this case, some things were very, very challenging and require a lot of time to do just basic little adjustments. This is going to keep me on task here. I apologize. In the 1920s, also, it was very common for organs to have a more orchestral tonal flavor. So instead of this more, what we would now consider an organ-y type of a sound, you had imitative voices, French horn, large flutes that were more broad in sound and not more of a classical organ sound. In the 1980s, things were revised in order to bring a more classical sound to the instrument. And some of the older voices were supplanted. If you look in the bulletins, actually, I did detail what exactly changes. It's interesting to see what stops they took out to replace with the more modern voices. So when we came here a couple years ago for the first time and looked into these chests, we kind of assumed that the leather inside the organ would be in bad shape. It was original from 1926. Generally, the lifespan of leather is about 35 to 50 years, so I say they didn't do too bad. There was also other mechanical issues. Again, because of the fact that these chests are very complicated, it makes going in after little individual problems is very time consuming. So we made a plan to, rebuild the chests. We actually took them out, had them on our bench in our shop so that we could go through everything. We still were at a disadvantage. Moeller, the company that built this organ, was the largest organ company that ever existed, and they had what do they call that? A line, like in cars, an assembly line process to assembling organs, and so they work wonderfully for a long time, but then when you go to have to work on them, it can be challenging because you're working up in places that when they put them together they had access, and then after that forget it. So that was challenging. We also looked at problems in the organ such as the old cotton covered wiring, which is hard to work on and causes stability issues going forward. So we wanted to bring the organ to a point where some of the problems, even in 35 years or 50 years when the leather goes bad, they won't have to address it even then. It just makes it much more stable. The second thing that we had to deal with the organ was the voices in the organ, bringing a better balance and a better marriage between the orchestral sounds that were in the organ in 1926 and the more classic voices that were added in the 1980s. We didn't have all the information when we started the project. The original wind pressure inside the chests was very high. By today's standards, 6 inches water column, less than 1 pound per square inch. Very low pressure, but by degrees, still very high. When we came here, it had been lowered, to make the later additions sound, better and more articulate, but really wasn't very successful overall. So we took a lot of the pipe work back to the shop, put it on our voicing jack, went through everything to make everything sound as good as it possibly could, with the materials that we had. When we brought the organ back, the chests were not happy on the lower wind pressure, and we returned the whole organ to the original pressure of 6 inches or thereabouts. And the original voices in the organ, the strings and the flutes, those wonderful orchestral type voices, which are still in the organ, just blossomed again in the room. So really it came together quite well. Again, I want to thank everybody at MAC for their patience. This has been a laborious process. Even after rebuilding the chests, there's many adjustments that have to be made, and one adjustment, for example, just to give how complicated, because of how cramped the organ is and because of the mechanism, just one little adjustment could take half a day. And so we spent lots of half a days making various adjustments, but I think that it has borne fruit, and I wish the folks here at Madison Avenue well, and I hope the organ serves them well for many years. Thank you very much.
say a few quick words about the pieces I'm about to play. So I will start with a piece of my own invention. It is a soft piece based on well-known Welsh hymn tune, Hyfrydol, which you might know as Come Thou Long Expected Jesus, or Love Divine, All Love's Excelling. And then the first of a set of 6 sonatas for the organ that Felix Mendelssohn wrote and published in 1845. A lot of people are familiar with Mendelssohn's orchestral music and wedding music. He was a very fine organist also, and his organ works belong in every organist repertoire alongside Bach's.
It is not to be anticlimactic, but thank you so much for coming. Thank you for our guest musicians today. What a wonderful treat. Please stay and visit for a while if you can.